Hey guys, in today's video I decided I'll talk a little bit about something that's been on my mind recently, which is my internal debate of whether I should rent out a place after I graduate and live on my own, or if I should stick it out at my childhood home with my parents and all that and save a lot of money. So just going to go through the pros and cons real quick, mostly for my own sake, but I don't know, maybe this will help someone else out there making a similar decision upon the graduation coming up in May. So obviously the big con of living alone is the huge chunk of salary that I would have to invest in rent, utilities, doing my own laundry, like paying for laundry, the overall moving cost of like going into a rented apartment or whatever, food costs, and overall this would probably all take up roughly 30 to 40% of my disposable income each month, which sounds probably worse than it might actually be, and that's definitely, I would hope, an overestimate for the most part. In my case specifically, I'm looking towards my own apartment. I would not, having a roommate just isn't something I would be able to do. I've just become so used to living on my own that unless it's someone I'm very, very close with, I don't think I could really live with someone comfortably. So yeah, sorry, I'm trying to collect my thoughts as I go. I do have everything written down, but I'm trying to just think of the order I want to go into. But overall, while I'm living at home and stuff, my family obviously covers the cost of living in the house. I also have all my utilities paid for, laundry is paid for, my food is paid for, everything's paid for. The only thing I'm going to pay for myself when I'm living at home is gas money for the car and maybe a meal or two here or there, that kind of thing. But otherwise, everything else I have basically paid for at home because my family basically considers my contribution at home of making dinner, going shopping, running errands, fixing things around the house, things like that to be worth the cost of living overall. Or worth the cost of what they would charge me for rent, I guess. But in all those things put together, make it very, very hard for me to realistically say that the smart choice is to live on my own in an apartment. Sorry, my camera's very cockeyed and messed up right now, but hopefully I can adjust it without too much effort. Okay, sorry about that. But anyway, for that 30 to 40% of disposable income I'd be spending on the whole renting an apartment process, realistically, that 30 to 40% of disposable income would otherwise go into my savings, most likely, which that savings, my plan would likely be to build that up to the point where I could use it for a down payment on an actual house that I own, rather than dealing with the whole renting thing month after month. One way or another, my goal is within the next 3 to 5 years to fully move out and own my own place rather than renting an apartment. So if I start renting now, the chances of that happening go down a bit, or it becomes much harder at least, especially if I don't have someone to live with at that point. I'm not against living with other people, just I don't want to force myself to live with someone I'm not like very, very close with. Basically, I'm waiting to find a significant other before I actually live with someone. But in any case, a lot of this decision is coming down to a emotional, mental state decision rather than a physical, financial decision. So on the emotional side of the cons for living alone is I know for a fact my family would not be happy about it. Like, they'd be happy for me that I'm living on my own and can do my own thing, but my mom specifically has been very much an empty nester since I got into college. My sister's gone to college and feels very left out of things, so I know it would be difficult for her. There's also the fact that renting an apartment is a very unfamiliar territory for me. I've never rented a place before. I like to buy things outright. I'm not big into the concept of renting stuff. I like to own everything that I have. I don't like to deal with renting cars or anything like that. Also, living in Parsippany itself is very much unfamiliar territory, and doing things like budgeting and stuff like that. Like, I have a vague idea if I do make budgets for myself, but not to the extent of that I would need to if I'm living on my own. Also, with the whole renting process, there's a lot of little things I feel like a lot of people don't account for: the utilities, the parking, the doing your laundry, whether there's a laundry machine in the building, all those kind of little things definitely pile up and make a difference. So with all that being said, there are a lot of pros to moving. The more technical pros are gas and time. Gas mileage is going to go down because my commuting time would probably be reduced by 2 to 3 hours over each day, because I'm going to be, if I move to an apartment, I would pick someplace very, very close to my office. And right now my commute to work is anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours. So figure I cut that commute time to 15 to 30 minutes either way. I would definitely have a lot more free time on my hands and make just living in general, especially after like a hard day, a long day at work kind of thing, it'd be a lot easier to be able to roll back home in 15 to 30 minutes rather than sit in traffic for 2 hours. And then, like I said, the biggest reason I'm considering moving into my own place is just the peace of mind of, I love my family and stuff, they love me, but they do drive me crazy to a point. I feel very trapped in my house sometimes. I don't have a lot of my own free space and stuff. I technically do. But if I were to do something like hang out in my room all day on a weekend or something like that, questions would definitely be raised. I'm dependable. I have to depend on other people around me and stuff if I'm living at home. And although it's nice to have everything paid for and stuff, I do think the building experience of paying for things on your own and all that is very, very important to development. And that's not something I've had a huge opportunity to do. It's not that I don't think I'm incapable of doing so. It's just I've never been forced to, so I've never done it. The other pro, this is more of a neutral than a pro, but realistically, I'm not like wasting my savings by living in an apartment or anything like that. It would just be that I would have less disposable luxury income, and that disposable luxury income would usually be going into my savings anyway. For example, I make $67,000 a year, scrape 20% off the top for taxes. You divide that remaining amount by $12,000 or so. Say 50% goes to savings right off the top. You are left with about $2,200 each month of disposable income that isn't going to savings. That extra $2,200, at least, I don't know, probably about $2,000 or $1,500 of it would be going to my savings anyway. So it's just I'm losing out on additional savings. It's not like I'm ruining my own savings and it kind of breaks everything, because I do plan on saving at least 50% of my income regardless of what happens. So ultimately my decision is going to come down to, I will for sure be starting off by living with my family, and my hope is that I'll be able to get into a routine and stuff that is comfortable, and I don't have to deal with some of the issues I'm expecting to encounter of living with my family day to day and spending so much time commuting and all that. So if I start off by trying to live with my family, my goal is to reevaluate in 3 to 6 months after living with my family, after I've settled into work, settled into a routine. That 3 to 6 months, I could also look at budgets and stuff more closely of how much I'm actually spending, how much I would be spending otherwise. Look closer at the cost of moving in general, which I'm looking at little by little, but there's a lot of the fine print things I know I'm probably not accounting for. Like, I do recognize that utilities and Wi-Fi and parking, all those things have costs to them, and whether they're built into the rent or otherwise, they are costs that matter. I could also get more insight from the people around me that I know are more familiar with renting and stuff. My older siblings that are definitely been through the renting process. I have friends at school that have been very familiar with the renting process and have given me advice here and there. So that's pretty much the goal. And then while I'm living at home, I'm just going to save as much money as I can, which if I stay at home, my goal will always be to save as much money as I can, spend as little as possible. But if I do move into an apartment, it is important that I save that money for that 3 to 6 months at home, as much as I can, because it's pretty much my salary over those months could be upwards of 12 grand when everything's said and done, probably more. I'm making 67,000 a year, and again, I always scrape 20% off the top for taxes, but you're looking at, after 6 months, at least $25,000 of just pure savings, which is awesome. It could even be that the choice to move into an apartment or something like that becomes much, much more realistic. Even if I'm kind of settled at home, it might become much more realistic after 3 to 6 months of saving. So there's a lot to think about. If one of the millions and millions of viewers I have out there have any insight for me, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll probably be scrolling through Reddit and talking to friends and things like that to look at things more carefully until I eventually make my decision in like 3 to 6 months or whatever after living with my family. So now that I've kind of gone through all the pros and cons, that's all I meant to do in this video, so I'm going to wrap it up here. As always, I'll thank you all for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.